Before I begin, I must explain that a robbery and a burglary are not the same thing. A robbery is someone taking property from a person or place by force or threat of force. A burglary is entry into a building illegally with intent to commit a crime, especially theft. This is about one of the biggest bank burglaries in American history, stealing $12 million. In order to fully understand why this burglary happened, you must first understand a few events that led to it. The year is 1972. At this time, Nixon is trying to get re-elected. Nixon needed support in the coming election, so he turned to the Teamsters, one of the biggest labor unions in America. At this time, Jimmy Hoffa, the Teamsters union leader, was in jail for bribery charges. Nixon made a deal with the Teamsters. They would send him a secret donation and Nixon would pardon Hoffa, although this came with a catch. Hoffa was not allowed to participate in Indian union activities for the next 8 years. Hoffa was furious. Hoffa wanted to get his money back, and caught wind of a bank in Laguna Niguel that held Hoffa's money and some money Nixon got from dairy farmers. Through his contacts with the Cleveland mob, he got word to Emil Dinzo. Most of the people he had hired for this heist were family members, with the exceptions being Charlie Brockle and Phil Christopher. All of these men had experience doing bank burglaries. A couple of weeks before the heist, they flew down using their real names to prepare to do one of the biggest bank heists in American history. The night before the heist, Emil Dinzo and his crew put their equipment in a bush near the bank. Everything was going smoothly, except for the fact that a jogger had found the equipment that morning and reported it to the police, who did nothing about it. They had to delay it a week to wait for the next Friday to roll back around. Chuck Mulligan decided to call old friend Rolly Dawson, which would lead to be one of the main reasons they were caught. The night of the heist came again, and this time the equipment they hid in the bush was still there. They first started with the alarm on the side of the building. They sprayed liquid styrofoam, which quickly hardened, which once it did, it couldn't alert anyone that they were there. Then they climbed on top of the bank and cut into the plywood roof. Emil Dinzo found the alarm control system and disabled it. Next they took burlap sacks filled with dirt to the roof. With a power drill, they cut 16 holes into the concrete roof and slipped a stick of dynamite into each and covered them with 9 bags of dirt to attempt to muffle the sound. The goal was to blow a hole into the roof of the bank without causing any suspicion, but when the dynamite blew up, a booming sound blasted through the dirt. They paused to see if anyone noticed, but surprisingly, no one came to investigate. Emil Dinzo's crew decided to progress with the plan and drop into the vault. They were greeted to 500 safety deposit boxes and had no idea which had Nixon money, except Dinzo. He knew exactly which two that held Nixon's money, but didn't tell the others. So, they decided to start busting them all open at random. They had so many bags of dollar bills that they decided they had to return for a second and third night on Saturday and Sunday. They managed to escape with $12 million from the heist. Naturally, no one thought Nixon would react to this. After all, they were stealing money that didn't belong to him. But a couple of days after the heist, the number of FBI agents shot up from 8 all the way to 125 FBI agents. Of course, this scared the burglars quite a bit. Chuck Mulligan was in charge of getting rid of the tools and to torch a car, as it was tradition to do so on Emil Dinzo's jobs, no matter how nice the car was. Chuck asked Ronnie Barber, who was eating ice cream at the time, to assist him in putting the tools in the back of the car, and by mistake, he left his ice cream in the back of the car. Chuck drove off, and instead of torching the car and getting rid of evidence, he left it in Early Dawson's garage. Alright, this next part gets quite complicated. At first, all the FBI knew is that the burglars were not from Laguna Niguel, as no one was skilled in that area, and they couldn't find any clues. A month later, a famous death occurred, the death of J. Edgar Hoover. He was the director of the FBI. Emil Dinzo hated that guy, and decided to celebrate by burglarizing another bank in Lordstown, Ohio. The thing is, he used the exact same technique as he did in the bank in Laguna Niguel. Since Emil is normally on the suspect list for the bank robberies in the Midwest, they started to wonder if the bank that was burglarized in Laguna Niguel was also done by him. They started by checking every flight between Cleveland and Los Angeles. They found out that Emil Dinzo was on a flight just before the heist, as they used their real names. Next, the FBI found out that Mill was suspected for several crimes that have never been solved. The next step the FBI took was asking taxi drivers at the airport if they'd seen Mill. One of them did. They had driven him to the Barber's residence. The FBI went to the address and was greeted by Viola Barber, a Mill's sister, who is also Harry and Robbie's mother. The FBI looked into nearby hotels and found the Jubilee Motor Inn, which both Emil Denzo and Chuck Mulligan stayed at. When the FBI checked the room that they stayed in, the FBI claimed to see fingerprints of all 7 members in the group, which Emil Denzo still does not believe.
It's a frame job. Let them see me. It's a frame job. It'll come out in court. These FBI guys are lying like hell.
When they checked the calls, they saw that one of the calls went to Early Dawson's residence. They decided to investigate and saw that the car they used was sitting in the open garage. Inside of the car sat not only all the tools they used, but also a ice cream container which Robbie Barber's fingerprints were on. The funny part is, Chuck Mulligan returned a few days later to search the car, but he was arrested on the spot. Due to the fingerprint evidence in the inn, the FBI were now able to go and hunt down those involved in the heist. Emil Denzo was arrested outside of his home after some kids found $1.4 million buried in a field near his house. Harry and Ronnie Barber traveled the country trying to stay one step ahead of the FBI, but eventually they had caught up to him. While Harry was out getting groceries, the FBI arrived at the apartment they were staying at and arrested Ronnie. Harry saw numerous police cars outside of the apartment and he fled. Everyone was caught. Everyone who was caught was sentenced between 5 and 20 years in prison, all except one. Harry Barber was the last member of the heist that hadn't been arrested. He was visiting a graveyard in Ohio, as Harry needed to change his name. He had found a gravestone belonging to John Baker. Harry decided to take that name. Harry traveled to a small town named Brookville in Pennsylvania. He stopped at the Department of Motor Vehicles and told them that he lost his license and he needed to renew it. Just like that, John Baker was brought back from the dead. Harry managed to hide for 7 years in that town. He got married to Marlene Brady and made lots of friends in that town. But one day, when Marlene was doing laundry, she came across a pair of pants that had H.J. Barber written on them by a dry cleaner. Marlene asked Harry who that was. Harry came clean. Harry told her that she could go and turn them in and she would get a $5,000 reward, but she didn't want to do that. She thought it was exciting living with a fugitive. Harry told the county sheriff, but since he had become such good friends with him, he didn't want to arrest Harry. Harry managed to go another 2 years until a deputy who had overheard their conversation called the FBI and reported that Harry Barber had been living in their town. The FBI came and arrested Harry. He was given 5 years in prison. And the sheriff that knew about Harry's secret, he got in trouble for harboring a fugitive, but eventually was acquitted.